I whispered, I miss how my ex made me feel. My husband overheard and walked out that same night. I'm sitting at our kitchen island, my third glass of wine leaving crimson stains on the rim of the crystal that Thomas bought for our fifth anniversary. The dinner party is in full swing around me, laughter erupting from the living room where Thomas is probably telling that story about our honeymoon again. I twist my wedding ring around my finger, feeling its weight. You okay in here? Megan asks, leaning against the doorframe. She's been my best friend since college, before adulthood crashed down on us. Yeah, just needed a minute. I take another sip, letting the wine sit on my tongue. These dinner parties exhaust me sometimes. Megan slides onto the stool next to me. Thomas seems to be enjoying himself. He always does. I nod, rolling my eyes slightly. Thomas enjoys everything. He's so content. The word comes out sounding more like an accusation than a compliment. Most women would kill for that stability, Emma, Megan says, raising an eyebrow. I know, I know. I stare into my wine glass. It's just sometimes I wonder what happened to that fire I used to feel. Remember when I was with David? Everything felt so intense, so alive. The alcohol loosens my tongue more than I realize. Sometimes I miss how my ex made me feel, like I was the most fascinating woman in the world. Thomas is comfortable. I don't notice the kitchen has gone silent. I don't notice the tall shadow in the doorway behind me, frozen mid-step. Emma. Megan's eyes widen, looking past me. I turn, and there's Thomas, my husband of 7 years, holding an empty serving dish, his face completely unreadable except for his eyes. His eyes tell me everything. I'm just getting more potatoes, he says quietly, his voice steady. He walks past me to the counter, loads the dish methodically, and walks out without looking at me again. I think, shit, how much did he hear? But somehow, I convince myself it's not a big deal. After all, it was just idle wine talk. Thomas doesn't get upset about things like this. He'll be fine, I whisper to Megan. He probably didn't even hear the whole thing. The rest of the evening passes in a blur. Thomas is the perfect host, attentive, funny, making sure everyone's glasses stay full. But he doesn't look at me once. Not directly. I tell myself I'm imagining the coldness. By midnight, our friends have all left. I'm loading the dishwasher, feeling the awkward silence pressing down between my shoulder blades. Thomas is somewhere upstairs. That went well, I call out, trying to sound cheerful. No response. I climb the stairs to our bedroom, rehearsing what I'll say. It was nothing. I was just being nostalgic. You know how I get when I drink Cabernet. But our bedroom is empty. The bathroom door is open, light off. I walk to Thomas's closet and slide it open. His suitcase is gone. My heart stops. Thomas, I call out, my voice echoing through our too big house. I rush downstairs, checking each room. In the garage, his car is missing. My phone buzzes in my pocket. A text from Thomas. I need some space. Staying at Eric's for a few days. I stare at the message. Thomas doesn't do things like this. Thomas is predictable, stable. Thomas doesn't walk out. I quickly type back, Babe, you're overreacting. Come home so we can talk about this. 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Finally, I think I've heard enough tonight. I think this is ridiculous. He can't seriously be this upset over one little comment. I call him, but it goes straight to voicemail. Thomas, this is crazy, I say after the beep. It was just stupid wine talk. Come home, you're being dramatic. I wake up alone the next morning, my head pounding. Thomas's side of the bed is untouched. My phone shows no new messages. I call Megan. He walked out, I say when she answers. Can you believe he's being this sensitive? Over nothing. There's a pause on the line. It wasn't nothing. You basically said your ex was more exciting than your husband. At your own dinner party, with all your friends there. I didn't say that, I protest. I just said I missed how David made me feel sometimes. That's different. How would you feel if Thomas said he missed how his ex made him feel? In front of everyone? I feel a flicker of discomfort. That's not the same. It's exactly the same, Megan sighs. Emma, you've been doing this for years, making little comments, putting Thomas down. He notices, you know. We all notice. What are you talking about? I sit up straight, defensive. Name one time I've put Thomas down. Last month at the barbecue, you told everyone he couldn't grill to save his life. At New Year's, you mocked his dancing. At my birthday, you interrupted his story to tell it properly because he was doing it wrong. Megan's voice is gentle but firm. It's constant, Em. Those are just jokes, I insist, even as a knot forms in my stomach. They're not jokes to him. After hanging up, I try calling Thomas again. Straight to voicemail. I send a text. I'm sorry if what I said hurt you. Can we please talk? No response all day. By evening, I'm furious. How dare he ghost me like this? I'm his wife, not some random hookup. I drive to Eric's house rehearsing what I'll say, how he's overreacting, how marriage means working through things, not running away. Eric answers the door looking uncomfortable. He's not here, Emma. Don't lie to me. His text said he was staying with you. I try to peer past him into the house. Nana, he was here last night. He left this morning. Where did he go? Eric shrugs. He didn't say. But Emma, give him space. He's really hurt. It was one comment. One stupid comment. Eric looks at me sadly. Was it, though? Because from what he told me, this is just the latest in a long pattern. I drive home, tears of frustration blurring my vision. Why is everyone acting like I'm some kind of monster? So I made one nostalgic comment about an ex. So what? 3 days pass with no word from Thomas. I cycle between anger, indignation, and creeping guilt. I call his office, and his assistant tells me he's taken a week off. I call his parents and get vague responses. On day 4, I get a text. I'll be by the house tomorrow at 10 to pick up some things. I'd appreciate it if you could be out. My fingers fly across the screen. This is my house, too. You don't get to tell me when to be in my house. His response is immediate. It's our house, Emma, and I'm asking for 1 hour of peace. Can you give me that much? I don't respond. The next day at 9:55, I'm standing in our living room when Thomas's car pulls into the driveway. I watch through the window as he sits there for a moment, steeling himself. When he walks in and sees me, he stops. I asked for one thing, he says quietly, and I need to talk to you, I counter. This has gone on long enough, Thomas. You can't just walk out on our marriage over one comment. He walks past me to the stairs. I'm getting my things. I follow him. So that's it? 7 years and you're just done? Because your feelings got hurt? Thomas turns to face me, and I'm struck by how different he looks. There are shadows under his eyes, but there's also something else, a resolve I've never seen before. It's not about one comment, Emma. It's about the fact that you've been slowly chipping away at my self-worth for years. His voice is steady, and when I heard you say that about your ex, it was like a curtain lifted. I suddenly saw everything clearly. That's ridiculous, I snap. You're twisting things. Am I? He sits on the edge of our bed. 2 months ago, when I got that promotion, what did you say to me? I falter. I congratulated you. You said, well, they must have been desperate if they promoted you, in front of my colleagues. His eyes bore into mine. You laughed afterward, like it was a joke, but jokes are supposed to be funny, Emma. I open my mouth, close it again. At our anniversary dinner, you spent 15 minutes telling the waitress about your ex's restaurant in New York, about how he was a culinary genius. Thomas runs a hand through his hair. Do you know how that made me feel? Hearing my wife go on about another man's talents on our anniversary? You never said anything, I whisper. I did, every time, and you always said I was being too sensitive. He looks exhausted. I kept thinking I needed to be tougher, less emotional, that the problem was me. I sink onto the bed beside him, feeling sick. I didn't realize. I know you didn't. That's part of the problem. Thomas stands up, moves to his closet, and begins methodically packing clothes into a duffel bag. I don't think you're a bad person, Emma, but I do think you don't respect me. Maybe you never did. That's not true, I protest, panic rising. I love you. Loving someone and respecting them aren't the same thing. He zips the bag closed. I need to figure out if I can be with someone who doesn't respect me, and you need to figure out why you treat the people you love this way. When he walks out, I don't follow. I sit on our bed, his words echoing in my head, memories flooding back. All the times I'd dismissed him, corrected him, compared him unfavorably to others. Each small cut I'd inflicted without thinking. A week passes. Thomas moves into a short-term rental. I start seeing a therapist who asks uncomfortable questions about my childhood, my father's constant criticism, my need to feel superior to protect myself. 2 weeks in, I meet Thomas for coffee. He looks better, rested, calmer. I've spent hours preparing what to say, how to convince him to come home. I've been thinking a lot, I begin, clutching my mug. About what you said, about respect. He nods, waiting. I didn't see it. How I was treating you. My voice cracks. I think I was afraid. Of what? Of how much I need you. How stable and good you are. Tears well up. I think I was trying to convince myself I didn't need that I was too exciting, too special for someone as grounded as you. Thomas looks at me for a long moment. Thank you for saying that. I reach for his hand. So, will you come home now? He gently pulls his hand away. No, Emma, I'm not coming home. But I apologized. I'm getting help. And I'm proud of you for that. But I need more than an apology. He looks me in the eye. I need to rebuild my sense of self, and I can't do that with you right now. I watch him walk away, feeling the ground shift beneath me. For the first time, I understand that my actions have consequences that can't be undone with words. Over the next months, the consequences become impossible to ignore. Friends start declining my invitations, choosing Thomas in the split. At a grocery store, I overhear two acquaintances discussing how Thomas is finally standing up for himself and how I always treated him like a doormat. Meanwhile, Thomas is changing. He joins a hiking group, something I'd always mocked as too outdoorsy. He gets a new haircut, posts photos looking happier than I've seen him in years. I drive past his new apartment one evening and see him laughing with a woman on his balcony. They're cooking together, standing closer than friends would. He touches her shoulder, and she beams up at him. I sit in my car watching, a hollow feeling expanding in my chest. This woman, whoever she is getting the version of Thomas I took for granted. The loyal, kind, steady man who deserved a partner who celebrated those qualities instead of belittling them. 6 months after that dinner party, the divorce papers arrive. I sign them without protest. In our final meeting with the lawyers, Thomas looks at me kindly, without anger. I hope you find what you're looking for, Emma, he says. I think I had it. I had it all along and didn't see it. Tonight, I'm sitting alone in what used to be our kitchen. The house is too big now, too quiet. I've poured myself a glass of wine from the set Thomas bought for our anniversary, one of the few things I insisted on keeping. I run my finger around the rim, thinking about David, the ex I'd glamorized in my mind for so long. I'd reached out to him last week in a moment of weakness. We met for drinks. Within an hour, I remembered why we hadn't worked. His narcissism, his dismissal of anything that didn't interest him, his subtle put-downs. You know, he'd said, you haven't changed a bit, Emma. Still the same old drama queen. It wasn't a compliment. My phone lights up with a text from Megan. Thomas and Sarah got engaged. Thought you should hear it from me. I set down my glass, feeling the last pieces of my old life crumble away. In the silence of the kitchen where it all began, I whisper to no one. I miss how my husband made me feel, like I was worth becoming a better person for. But unlike Thomas that night, there's no one here to overhear me.